why the fuck is the stock market going up? Ladies and gentlemen, a week has passed and I am podcasting to you once more. Think of this as the preface. In fact, forgive me, I'm being impolite. Welcome to St. Bart's. It's late at night. I forgot to press record. This is the second time. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. But you've got to understand, and forgive me, no more whining. It was a beautiful sunny day. I had such a marvelous weekend. Acid capitalists, this is not market research. You know, the kind of smart, funky shit. It's not even a recap of last week. I'm annoyed. This is an argument. This is a fucking confrontation between what you've been told and what is actually happening in Iran. And by implication, what is happening to risk prices. Let me say that again. Why the fuck is the stock market going up? And I penned this little essay on my Substack. May I beseech you, my brothers and sisters, I know times are tough. I know some of you don't have many pennies, but I mean, wisdom is priceless, and I am putting wisdom out there on my Substack and on my Patreon. Come on over, join. I've got a Shopify account. I think we call it the Acid Capitalist. So if $30 a month is a stretch, I respect that. You know what? You can go into Shopify and you can buy the PDF or you can buy the videos. So much to learn. Let me be one of those lighthouses. Anyway, I wrote this particular piece because the gap between what you're reading on the front page of the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal and what you're seeing every day in the stock market, that gap, it's become too wide to ignore. For weeks, all this month certainly, the financial war narrative has, you know what? I gotta hand it to the journalists. It's being clean, it's being coherent. And you know what else? It's been confidently and consistently fucking wrong. Iran, let me recap. For weeks, the financial war narrative has been Iran, strong, America, reckless, risk, like mercury in the thermometer, rising. And yet, my friend, the stock market has done the opposite. It's cocked to snoop. I don't even know what that means. It just sounds like Snoopy Dog. I do know what it means. It means it's given the journalists the big fucking finger. Stocks have advanced. They've advanced calmly. They've advanced decisively. It's as if stocks can already see the ending in the Gulf. What do they see? Continue to listen to this if you care about that distinction between the clowns who write stuff daily and the minds that reward correct positioning. You should lean in if you've ever felt the unease about being right on your story and wrong in your P&L. I know I've been there. If you're the type that's suspected that what's being amplified by the media is not necessarily what matters, then this piece, I promise you, this piece is about learning to see that gap, to trust it, to feel the force look, so to speak, and to act before the explanation arrives to make it so fucking obvious. It's about, this podcast today is about relearning how to follow the price. Shall we do this from St. Bart's, from the ghetto? I'm not in block blue this week again. Business is good, but for the month of April, you have been sold a story about this market, and it's wrong. Do you know what? It's wrong in a way that should make your blood boil. Not because the facts are false, but because the conclusions were written long before the first tanker even tried to nose through the Hormuz. Every front page, every column, from the senior editors to the opinion desks, that transatlantic intelligentsia of the coastal elites and the European sophisticates. It tells you the same goddamn thing. Iran. Darling, Iran has the upper hand. The Strait is their choke point. Trump, that clown, he's out of his depth. He's a reckless vulgarian, and he's dragging all of us into another disaster. While the patient, the chess playing Iranians, they hold every card as they sip tea in Tehran. My brothers and sisters, this is not journalism. It's a fucking echo chamber. It's not writing to find the truth. It's writing to correct the perceived injustices of an elite that doesn't like today and its governance. It's attempting to repeat the same lines over and over again until they harden into something that looks but does not smell like fact. These morons, they expect, fuck that, they demand that the United States bleed another $23 trillion on defense so that the others, like NATO, so that magic free carpet ride can continue. These jokers, all the while, they sneer at the same people who've watched their wages go nowhere for decades, pretending that the last 30 years of Chinese industrial expansion was some benign byproduct of globalization, rather than the system designed to dominate you. In this crazy upside-down worldview, America is loud and therefore is reckless. The adversaries are patient and therefore they're strategic. Confrontation spells failure. It's a reflex at this point. I mean, I've lost more knowledge than I care to remember, but this is certainly not analysis. Roles assigned before facts arrive. I have contempt when roles are assigned before facts arriving. Do you know, the ending is always the same. I begin these things and I know the ending. The ending is that the problem isn't the world. Is that the wrong people are in charge of it. It's neat. It's certainly consistent. It's a script. More than that, it's a pamphlet of how the West was lost. And it's written in real time by people who think they're smarter than the rest of us. Damn those people. And me and my little tiny violin, I've read every word of it. Why? I don't know, because that's my job. And what jumps out? It's certainly not the brilliance. It's the hysteria. It's the same tired assumptions, the same arrogant certainty, the same conceit to admit that the market might be seeing something cleaner, meaner, more brutally honest than their jaundiced and outdated worldview. And that, I promise you, that is not analysis. And if you followed it, why on earth would you follow it? But you've been fighting the tape. The same tape that body slammed the S&P through fresh all-time highs last week above 7126. While the journalists insist the real edge sits in Tehran, give me a fucking break. Price, the majestic price has made the call. Not on the headlines, not on their rhetoric, but on the one question that actually matters. Who can afford to keep this thing going longest? The answer, once you strip out the theatre, is not the one you've been sold. The last 2 weeks, the Western financial press has been like Musk and his robots. Robotically, the last 2 weeks, the press have robotically pumped the same vainglorious, God, I love that word, the same vainglorious script with absolute certainty. You ready? Trump is reckless. Iran is ascendant. The Straits of Hormuz is a loaded gun in the hands of a regime recast as grand strategists. Mm. This is a perfect little story. It's neat. It's morally satisfying for the highbrow. Perfectly engineered to confirm with every lazy prejudice is also contemptible because it's wrong. Whilst they've been polishing and reprinting comfortable fiction, the one arena, my arena, the arena that has to bet real money, your money, on profitable outcomes, where decisions have consequences. That one arena took one cold look at this narrative, and it did what the journalist would say is unforgivable, which I say is magnificent. The market, the market did not validate. The market did not hedge. The market, it didn't even blink. It just fucking ignored it. It went the other way. It made fresh all-time highs whilst the entire elitist Tehran-centric fantasy was still being printed as gospel. S&P crossing 7,000, not with like fear, not with hesitation, not like a tanker, like going, we're going through the straits. I hope we don't get blown up. No, the S&P crossed 7,000 with the cold assurance of a market that had already made its mind up weeks ago. The Nasdaq, I mean, it's on a streak that belongs less to ordinary trading and more to myth, to the kind of violent momentum that tells you there's a genuine regime shift in how capital is being allocated. Genuine regime shift. This was never a global market for risk flinching at geopolitical stress. It was a market advancing straight through it. Like the entire elite media narrative was irrelevant. And that distinction is everything, because unlike newspapers peddling moral comfort, markets are really only in the business of being right on outcome. Let me say it slowly. Markets, they reduce the world to one ruthless fucking question. When it looks at the actors, economic, or when it looks at adversaries in conflict, it asks, who is constrained and how badly? And the answer, once you strip out the BS, is not complicated. Iran's oil system is not built to pause. It's built to flow. It's a flow system. Oil cannot simply sit in the ground while strategists argue over maps and how much uranium dust to give over. It has to move. Iran and its system has to move continuously from the rock underground to the tanker in the harbor to the Chinese buyer in Asia. Break, pause long enough, and the whole machine breaks. Interrupt that flow, and the problem isn't just lost revenues of like 40, 50, 60 billion dollars. It's the least of your concerns. Problem is physical and is irreversible. Because when you suddenly shut the well, remember there's no physical storage. They pump, they load, they ship. If they can't load, if they can't ship, they can't pump. And when you suddenly shut the wells, the pressure underground drops fucking fast. Do you know what happens? The heavy, sticky crap in the oil, it gums up in the tiny holes within the rocks and becomes like glue. It traps the oil. It makes it really fucking hard to extract. And once that damage is done, it's permanent. You'll lose a big chunk of the oil forever. The more Iran is actively, um, either through theatre or through bluff, the more that it sits in a standoff, the more it is actively destroying the one thing that it actually depends upon. Now, that's not the Ali Akbar crap. That's the trap. And you're not reading in the press, but you're damn well reading it on your screens. Because this is where the gap between the narrative of the media and the price, it stops being subtle and irrelevant, and it's why markets have priced something entirely differently. A system, the Iranian system, the adversary that cannot afford to stay disrupted without hurting itself, that's in the price. And the cleanest expression, forget oil price. It was volatility. The VIX did not ease lower these last 2 weeks with improving conditions. No. The VIX fucking collapsed down roughly 38% in 2 weeks. One of the sharpest compressions in decades. Now that's not sentiment drifting, that's risk being systematically taken off the table and chopped into tiny little pieces of irrelevance. When volatility collapses like this, forward stock market returns, they don't become relatable or debatable. They become predictable. You see, the average 1-year return, when vol has just been slammed like this, the average 1-year return you should be thinking about is in the high teens. This isn't asset capitalist theory. This is better. It's repetition. It happens again and again and again. Now, there's an exception for transparency and for fullness. Let's discuss the exceptions worth paying attention to. Late 2021, but that was a hell of a different environment. The Fed was heightening aggressively and forcing valuations lower. It'd been trapped. It'd gone too loose with the initial COVID. And subsequently, it embarked on the quickest and greatest tightening in US monetary policy ever. That's not what we have now. Policy isn't leaning that way. And the underlying data, it doesn't support that kind of Federal Reserve pivot. So 2021, I want to say it's a black mirror image of what's about to happen. Don't trust me? I mean, I'm the asset capitalist. Take producer prices. Producer prices. The sort of release that it really inspires poetry. But it often tells you what matters. And last week's headline, yes, it was driven by crazy gasoline prices. But beneath that, stripping it out, looking at the core measure was weirdly calm. Stripped out of food and energy, producer prices barely moved. I call this the difference between the crazy surface of the market and the bloodstream. The surface is noisy, reactive. It's prone to spectacle. Weird things happen and they get corrected. The persistence, what is persistence? Persistence for me is a word like knowledge, understanding. And it sits underneath that highway of absurdity, the daily noise. The wisdom sits contained. And markets understand this instinctively, and so must you. Markets trade the system, not the symptom. And then I'm going to wrap, but I've got a third part to my argument. So part one, you're being fed elitist nonsense. Part two, which of the adversaries can hold on longest? And I think I've taken you through how the vulnerability of a flow system forced to pause means that Iran will flinch first. And arguably that's what's embedded in stock prices, which seem likely to continue to advance. Now I want you to add the market's forward machinery. I'm talking about the next wave of equity issuance. And it's mythically fucking enormous, but it's not hypothetical. It's assembling right now, like over my shoulder, like in the Atlantic. It's like storms, like hurricanes. SpaceX. Wow. What is it? $1.5 trillion? A hypothetical valuation. OpenAI hoping for $1 trillion. Really crazy, Sam. Anthropic, the same. I mean, probably Anthropic comes first. The three of them and others waiting in the wings, ready to IPO, the largest listings in the history of mankind. Trillions of value, hundreds of billions of fresh equity is going to be raised. A tidal wave of public participation. The matrix, the system, it needs this to happen. It needs a public mark on all these assets. A release valve for bloated private inventories. I mean, just think those three companies are sitting privately with a valuation of Apple. The matrix needs to get real liquidity flowing. It needs to get hypothetical private into market validated listing. And that positioning is now. It's anticipating, it's building exposure. This is not irrational exuberance. This is rational pre-positioning in its most distilled form. It's that moment when the music stops, when the myth fractures. You know that one, the Beatles have split up. Bueller, what am I talking about? The moment when everyone is forced to confront what was real and what was just made up. And so whilst the media is still playing the old gramophone record around and around, the Beatles are split up, the Beatles are split up, amplifying every prejudicial statement about the West, about Trump. Iran is strong, America is overreaching. I want to tell you, the headlines that you're reading are trading diminishing possibilities. They're approaching the realm of fantasy of the writers. But the market has priced the probability. And right now, the probabilities tell you, well, what do they tell you? They don't point to an empowered adversary like Iran dictating terms to a paralyzed American administration. They certainly do not tell you that. They point to something simpler, a constrained energy producer hitting the natural limits of its own system. A system put on pause that needs flow. A system that is precariously on the edge of irreversible damage. And the probabilities point to a global inflation that looks louder than it is in practice. And finally, global capital markets have already moved. Global capital markets are no longer trying to travel through the Straits of Hormuz. Instead, they're waiting for the hurricane of IPOs over my shoulder to come to a stock market close to you. That's the split. Two versions of reality. One written, one traded, and only one of them is making you money. Boom, baby, baby, boom. That was a rant. That was current affairs. That was my opinion. I don't know if you agree with my opinion, but I hope you found it entertaining. There was beautiful sunshine today on the beautiful island of St. Bart's. And whatever energy I feel like it, sometimes I feel like the rocks that absorb all of that energy, and at night it's released. There's a fountain of youthfulness on this beautiful island, and the energy retained within me, I'm directing at you. I don't know where you are, but I feel like I know you. You're listening, and you're smiling. I can see you're smiling. And thank you very much for tuning in with all of my love. My brothers and my sisters, I extend my warmest wishes and my great thanks that you came back again. What are we going to play? What's next? I've been playing a lot of Kanye. I've had 23-year-old boys in the frat house, and we've been Kanyeing. It's been very cool. So maybe we will have something to say at the end. Anyway, boom, boom, boom. Bisous to everyone.